You really think money makes you somebody? Ethan's mocking words cut through the ballroom like a blade, and for a moment, every eye turned toward Amara Bakari. That was the moment her past came crashing into her present. A high school reunion, meant to be about old friends and faded memories, suddenly became a stage for humiliation, whispered judgments, and one woman's fight to reclaim her story. What happens when your ex-husband tries to define your worth in front of everyone who once knew you, and you refuse to let him win? Tonight, you'll hear Amara's journey from the edge of shame to the power of standing tall in her truth. Stay with us until the very end. You won't believe who walks through those doors. And if you want more stories like this one, make sure to subscribe, turn on the bell, and tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The chandelier lights glared down on the ballroom, polished floors reflecting the shimmer of sequined dresses and the muted gleam of tailored suits. Amara Bakari paused at the threshold, her heels sinking slightly into the thick carpet, her chest tightening as every head seemed to swivel toward her. 100 conversations faltered, replaced by whispers that curled like smoke in the corners of the room. She forced herself forward, chin lifted, sapphire earrings catching the light. Though her palms were damp against the clutch she gripped too tightly, she could feel her pulse in her throat, the rhythm quick and uneven, as she stepped into the space that still smelled faintly of champagne and old money. The moment stretched thin until it broke with a voice behind her, low and sharp enough to slice through the air. "Well, look who decided to show up," Ethan Cole said, his words coated in mock admiration. He leaned casually against the bar, glass of scotch in hand, his smile wide enough to show teeth yet hollow enough to chill her blood. The old quarterback stance remained, confident shoulders and practiced charm, but his eyes glinted with something predatory. His laughter followed his words, inviting others nearby to join in, and a few nervous chuckles rose as if on command. Amara's stomach twisted, memories slamming into her. Nights spent typing his briefs while he slept. Mornings when he called her lucky to have him. Afternoons when her ambitions were dismissed as hobbies. The ghost of those wounds pressed hard, but she inhaled slowly, steadying herself. Tasha Johnson, her oldest friend, pushed through the crowd and grabbed her hand, squeezing firmly. "Ignore him, Amara," she whispered, voice taut but steady. "He feeds on reaction. You're here for you, not him." Amara nodded, though her jaw ached from keeping her face calm, and she let Tasha lead her toward a cluster of classmates. The hum of conversation resumed, though she felt eyes darting in her direction. Chloe Simmons, once a cheerleader with a perfect smile sharpened by envy, approached with a champagne flute held like a prop. "Amara, darling, you look radiant," Chloe said sweetly, pausing before her smirk tilted. "Daniel must have such impeccable taste in clothes. Men like him always know how to dress their wives." Amara's throat burned at the deliberate sting, but she forced a polite smile, her nails digging into the clutch. "I choose my own dresses," she replied evenly, her tone clipped, though her heart raced. Chloe's eyes flickered, momentarily caught off guard, before she drifted away with a brittle laugh. Michael Green, the quiet boy she once defended in high school, now in a sharp gray suit, stepped in with an awkward smile. "Don't mind her," he said softly, handing her a glass of sparkling water. "Some people never grow up." His kindness steadied her for a moment, but Ethan's laughter echoed again, drawing every gaze back to the bar where he now stood taller, raising his glass like a performer. 10 years, Ethan declared, his voice booming across the ballroom as if it were his courtroom. 10 years since we all left these halls, chased our dreams, built our lives. Some of us clawed our way up, worked hard, paid our dues. His gaze slid deliberately to Amara, lingering long enough for everyone to follow. "And some of us," he added with a shrug, "found easier ways." A ripple of murmurs surged through the crowd, and Amara felt her lungs squeeze, the oxygen thinning. She forced herself to stand straighter, though her knees wanted to give. Tasha muttered under her breath, "He's baiting you." Michael's brow furrowed, his jaw set as he whispered, "Stay calm. Let him dig his own grave." But Ethan wasn't finished. He smirked as he swirled the amber liquid in his glass. "Amara Bakari," he said, deliberately using her maiden name. Still as striking as ever. Marriage must suit you. Must be nice not worrying about bills, huh? The room chuckled uneasily, caught between amusement and discomfort. Amara's skin prickled, every word a match striking the fuel of her insecurities. She wanted to scream that she had fought, that she had built her own path, but her tongue felt locked. Ethan's words were too familiar, his cadence designed to unearth the scars he had left. She clenched her fists, nails pressing crescents into her palms, and willed herself not to flinch. Ethan stepped away from the bar, weaving through the crowd with calculated ease until he was close enough that she could smell the cologne she once hated, sharp and aggressive. He leaned in just slightly, his smile dripping with condescension. "Remember when we couldn't afford pizza on Fridays? Seems you've upgraded to caviar." His laughter erupted again, dragging others into its orbit, and she felt heat crawl up her neck. Tasha tugged her closer, shielding her body slightly, but Amara shook her head. She would not hide. She lifted her chin, her voice cool though her insides trembled. "Hello, Ethan. You haven't changed at all." The flicker of annoyance in his eyes was brief, quickly masked by another false smile. But she saw it. It was the smallest crack, yet it gave her enough strength to keep standing. Clusters of conversation thickened as the night deepened, but the weight of tension pressed harder on Amara's chest. The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers, the scent of expensive perfume lingering in the air. Yet every sparkle and laugh felt like a mirror aimed at her flaws. Ethan prowled through the crowd, his voice loud enough to command attention, his glass lifted as though he owned the evening. "You know what I respect?" he boomed, his grin sharp. "People who fight, who grind every single day to make something real." His eyes locked on Amara again, the pause deliberate. "Not everyone understands that kind of struggle." Laughter trickled, hesitant but contagious, and Amara's pulse quickened. She knew this rhythm too well, the way he used charm to twist perception until the room bent toward him. Tasha leaned close, whispering urgently, "He's circling you. Don't give him what he wants." But Amara's throat tightened, her silence feeding the performance. Chloe Simmons materialized at Ethan's side, her sequined dress catching the light like a dagger. She raised her voice just enough to be overheard. "Ethan, remember senior year when Amara said she'd change the world?" Bold words back then. Her smile gleamed, though her tone dripped with poison. "I guess dreams look different when someone else pays the bills." The sting landed with precision, and a ripple of murmurs spread again. Amara's grip on her clutch trembled, her nails biting deeper into the leather, but she forced her chin up. "I still dream, Chloe," she said evenly, though her stomach burned. Chloe tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Of course, darling, but doesn't Daniel have enough for both of you?" A few chuckles bubbled nearby, and Amara felt the walls close in. Michael Green pushed forward, his voice firm, though quieter than Ethan's. "That's uncalled for," he said sharply. "Amara always pushed harder than any of us. She deserves better than your cheap digs." His words sparked a momentary silence, and relief touched Amara's chest. Yet Ethan smirked, seizing the lull like oxygen. "Michael," Ethan said smoothly, clapping him on the shoulder, "you've done well for yourself. But come on, let's not rewrite history. We all know who was the ambitious one back then." He gestured toward himself, smugness dripping from every syllable. "Amara was supportive, sure, sweet, quiet, a good partner. But ambition? That was my department." His audience leaned in, drawn to the certainty of his tone, and Amara's fists clenched as her blood rushed hot in her ears. "Supportive?" she echoed, voice low yet sharp, though Ethan ignored her, pivoting back to the crowd. "That's the truth, folks. And hey, I'm not bitter. She's living the dream, right? No shame in choosing a comfortable life." His words carved at her resolve, weaving the old narrative he had always spun. She was nothing without him. Tasha grabbed Amara's arm, nails digging slightly. "Don't bite, not yet," she warned, her eyes fierce. Amara swallowed, her tongue heavy with the truth she wanted to spill, but her body shook from the strain of restraint. The band in the corner played a soft jazz tune, but the melody barely cut through the thrum of tension. Amara's gaze darted to the chandelier above, its brilliance mocking, and she steadied herself with a breath. A man she barely remembered from chemistry class approached, his tone casual but edged. "Ethan tells it like it is," he said, chuckling nervously. "We all knew you two back then. You were inseparable. Funny how fast things changed." The insinuation sliced deep, the idea that her choices were betrayal rather than survival. "People change," she answered, her words clipped but steady. "Not everyone stays trapped in the same patterns." Ethan's grin widened, his voice rising again. "Patterns, Amara? Or shortcuts? Tell me, did you ever finish that art program you loved? Or was it easier to start over in someone else's penthouse?" The room tensed, the cruelty veiled as curiosity, and Amara felt her chest tighten. For a moment, silence gripped her. Then Michael stepped in again. "That's enough," he snapped, but Ethan laughed it off, holding the crowd like a conductor. The laughter spread, shallow but effective, and Amara's vision blurred with heat. She pressed her clutch against her ribs, grounding herself as whispers buzzed like insects. Each murmur carried the weight of judgment, each sideways glance a verdict. She reminded herself to breathe, to stand, to not collapse into the cage he was building with his words. Tasha brushed her shoulder, murmuring, "This isn't the end. Don't let him rewrite your story." Amara inhaled sharply, meeting Ethan's eyes across the space. His smirk told her he believed he had already won, that the room belonged to him. Her jaw tightened, her voice steadied in her chest, though she hadn't spoken yet. The air thickened, and everyone was waiting for her to crack, but she held her ground, even as the pressure threatened to crush her. Ethan raised his glass once more, basking in the attention, but this time she didn't flinch. She stayed silent, strong, her eyes burning with defiance, knowing the storm wasn't over, but refusing to let him see her break. The clink of metal against glass sliced through the air, sharp and commanding, silencing the room. Ethan Cole stood near the small stage, the spotlight catching his smug grin as he raised his champagne flute. Amara froze where she stood, her heart hammering against her ribs, every nerve bracing for impact. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ethan began, his tone practiced, smooth as a rehearsed argument. 10 years, can you believe it? Look around. Doctors, entrepreneurs, parents, people who worked, who sacrificed, who fought to be here tonight." He let the words hang, his gaze sweeping until it landed squarely on her. "Real success doesn't come easy, and not all of us know what that feels like." A ripple of laughter stirred, uncertain but contagious, and Amara's throat tightened. Tasha gripped her wrist, whispering, "Breathe. Don't let him pull you under." But Amara's breath caught, the spotlight's heat pressing down like judgment. Ethan's voice softened, dripping with faux sincerity. "I want to take a moment to acknowledge someone very important from my past. My ex-wife, Amara Bakari." Gasps rippled, followed by hushed whispers. The sound wrapped around her like chains, dragging her back into memories of being reduced, diminished, erased. He used her maiden name deliberately, as though stripping away every layer she had built since leaving him. "We were high school sweethearts," he continued, his smile lined with manufactured nostalgia. "We started from nothing, shared every hardship, every penny counted. I worked night and day to build a future, and she supported me for a while." His paws twisted like a blade. The crowd leaned in, feeding on the bait. Amara's nails bit into her palms, but she held her ground, though her knees wavered. Michael stepped closer, his eyes flashing with anger, whispering, "He's rewriting history. Don't let him." Ethan sighed dramatically, looking out at the sea of familiar faces. But not everyone can endure the grind. Some paths are too steep, too unforgiving. Some choose comfort. He took a slow sip, savoring the moment as though his cruelty was wine. "And while I've fought for every inch, I can only hope she's still in touch with who she once was. Because when life hands you everything on a silver platter, it's easy to forget your roots." The crowd murmured louder now, the words digging into Amara's skin like claws. Chloe smirked from across the room, her expression saying what her mouth didn't need to. "He's right." Tasha leaned close, whispering fiercely, "He's poisoning them, but you're stronger." Amara's chest ached, every beat shouting back the truth she longed to scream. Yet she remained silent, her eyes locked on Ethan, unwilling to give him the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. Ethan's voice dropped to a mockingly tender tone. I worry about her sometimes. She had so much potential, so much fire. An artist, brilliant, full of light. He shook his head with feigned regret. But fear changes people. Dreams fade. She chose security over ambition, luxury over purpose. And now, I look at her and wonder if she even remembers that girl she used to be. Gas flared around the room, the audience captivated, their expressions tinged with pity. Amara's vision swam, her breath shallow, and for a moment she felt 24 again, lost in his narrative, believing his lies. The chandelier above blurred into streaks of light, the floor beneath her threatening to dissolve. Michael's hand brushed hers, grounding her with a murmur. Don't let him define you. Not again. Tasha's eyes burned with fury, though her voice softened. He's lying. Everyone who matters will see it. Ethan straightened, his triumph evident. So here's to the class of 2014, he declared, lifting his glass high. To resilience, to real success, and to never forgetting who we are. Applause broke out, hesitant yet obedient, a wave of complicity that crashed over Amara like cold water. She stood rigid, her lips pressed into a line, her pulse roaring in her ears. The spotlight shifted slightly, casting her in partial glow, exposing her as the silent defendant in his courtroom. Ethan's smirk widened, confident that he had won, that the narrative was his. Amara forced herself to breathe, to lift her chin, to let her eyes harden into steel. She whispered to herself, a vow only she could hear. I will not break. Not tonight. The roar of whispers swirled again, but beneath it, her resolve sharpened, a quiet defiance burning against the weight of humiliation. The storm had only begun. The air shifted instantly as the heavy oak doors at the far end of the hall swung open, admitting a tall, commanding figure whose presence seemed to bend the light around him. Daniel Whitaker stepped in, impeccably dressed in charcoal gray, eyes scanning the room until they locked onto Amara. Ethan, he said, voice calm but cutting, I think it's time you stop rewriting history. A ripple ran through the crowd, curiosity twisting into tension. Ethan's smirk faltered slightly, but only for a heartbeat, his hand tightening around his champagne glass. Daniel, he drawled, masking unease with sarcasm. I didn't expect you so soon. Or perhaps I should say, not everyone can handle surprises gracefully. Amara's chest tightened, hope mingling with adrenaline. Tasha squeezed her shoulder. He's here, she whispered, and he's not letting it slide. Daniel moved toward the stage with measured steps, the crowd parting instinctively, sensing authority in his posture. You've done a lot of talking tonight, Ethan, Daniel continued, his gaze never leaving him. Stories are powerful, but truth is stronger, and I think everyone here deserves to hear it from the right source. Ethan's grin strained, lips twitching as he fought to maintain composure. Ah, the wealthy savior, he said, though the words lacked conviction. Come to rescue your queen? Daniel's eyes narrowed, sharp and unflinching. Not rescuing anyone. I'm correcting the record. Amara felt her pulse surge, a mix of relief and tension. Every person in the room seemed to lean forward involuntarily, sensing a power shift, the air thick with anticipation. Daniel gestured subtly toward Amara, letting the room witness their connection without words. This woman, he said, voice carrying over murmurs, built herself from nothing. Every challenge she faced, every barrier thrown in her way, she overcame alone. And yet someone here dares to minimize her journey for applause and self-satisfaction. The murmurs swelled, and Ethan's hand twitched, a nearly imperceptible tremor betraying his calm facade. I merely shared context, he stammered, trying to reclaim control. Context doesn't excuse distortion, Daniel replied sharply, voice resonating with certainty. And if you value respect, you'll stop twisting her story in front of everyone who matters. Amara's eyes glistened, her heart pounding as her disbelief turned into vindication. Ethan tried to step forward, a defensive posture replacing his earlier bravado. "You're overstepping," he said, voice louder, edged with panic. "This is a celebration, not a trial." Daniel's stare cut through him. It becomes a trial the moment lies are weaponized. Amara endured years of manipulation, yet she's still standing. You, on the other hand, seem exhausted from your own pretense. Gasps and whispers rippled, the room dividing into curiosity, shock, and cautious support. Amara, still trembling, found herself steadied by Michael's presence at her side, his hand brushing against hers with quiet reassurance. "You see," he murmured, "your truth has more weight than any show Ethan can stage." Daniel advanced another step, voice deliberate, measured, impossible to ignore. "I've seen her work tirelessly, day and night, building a legacy from sweat and perseverance. Every moment she sacrificed, every sleepless night, every heartbreak, it wasn't forgotten. And to those here wondering who she really is, take note. She defines herself, not the ghosts of the past." Ethan's face paled, sweat forming along his temple, his eyes darting around, searching for allies who weren't there. Amara exhaled, the tension coiling inside her, loosening just enough to allow controlled clarity. The chandeliers above reflected sharp streaks of light across Daniel's determined face, emphasizing his conviction. Tasha whispered, "Now watch him crumble." Ethan's final defense faltered, a hollow laugh escaping as the room's energy shifted. You can't," he started, but Daniel cut him off. "I already have. The truth isn't about stopping someone else. It's about showing them what courage looks like when faced with falsehood." Amara felt warmth spreading through her chest, her gaze meeting Daniel's, a silent acknowledgement of solidarity and empowerment. The crowd, once unsure, began murmuring in agreement, whispers morphing into supportive applause. Michael's arm linked with hers, his smile fierce yet protective. "They see you," he murmured, "exactly as you are. Strong, unbreakable." Ethan's smirk dissolved entirely, replaced by the realization that his control had slipped irrevocably. Daniel's voice rose one final time, commanding and unwavering. "Tonight the narrative changes, not because someone shouts louder, but because the truth is undeniable. Amara stands not as someone defined by others, but as a testament to resilience and self-belief. And let this be clear, anyone trying to diminish that strength will find themselves alone." A stunned silence followed, then applause, sharp and relentless, washing over the room like a cleansing wave. Amara's lips curved into a genuine triumphant smile, her shoulders finally relaxed, standing proud amid the echo of vindication. The reversal was complete. The storm had shifted, and she had emerged unbowed, strengthened, untouchable in her self-worth. The room, still vibrating from Daniel's intervention, shifted its focus as all eyes turned to Amara, whose pulse raced yet steadied with the awareness that the moment to reclaim her voice had arrived. She inhaled slowly, chest rising, feeling the weight of every skeptical glance, every whispered doubt from before, settle like a challenge on her shoulders. "Enough," she said, voice low at first but carrying across the hall. "Enough of the stories that weren't mine. Enough of the shadows cast by people who think they can define me." Ethan blinked, disbelief sharpening the lines of his face as murmurs rippled through the room. You can't," he began, but the words faltered. Amara's gaze swept over the crowd, landing on familiar allies and strangers alike, and the warmth of solidarity bolstered her courage. Tasha leaned closer, whispering, "Now they'll hear your truth, every word." And Amara nodded, letting the quiet strength settle inside her like armor. She stepped forward deliberately, heels clicking against the polished marble floor, echoing in the silence that had fallen like a drawn curtain. "I am Amara Jensen," she announced, letting the name roll in the space, each syllable punctuated with undeniable confidence. Not a rumor, not a misrepresentation, not someone's distorted memory. Every struggle I faced, every moment of doubt, I endured it, and I am still standing. Daniel's presence at her side radiated unwavering support, his eyes steady and sharp, silently granting her permission to dominate the narrative. Ethan's expression contorted between anger and fear, his earlier arrogance dissolving in the face of undeniable certainty. You can't just rewrite the past, he spat, attempting to regain dominance, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Michael's hand found hers, a grounding presence, and he murmured, "Say what they need to hear. Make them see." Amara lifted her chin, letting her voice grow stronger, surer, commanding attention without hesitation. "I worked when no one applauded. I fought when the world doubted. I persevered while others sought shortcuts and applause at the expense of truth. And now you all will understand what it means to endure and rise, to define your path despite interference, despite manipulation." The chandeliers above reflected in her eyes, sparkling like shards of clarity, and every person in the room felt the intensity radiating from her. Ethan stepped back, attempting to mask vulnerability with defiance, but the crowd's shift toward Amara was undeniable, whispers of approval spreading like wildfire. Tasha clapped quietly, a smile of vindication crossing her face, while Daniel's nod was subtle, yet powerful, communicating that the moment was hers entirely. Voices rose in agreement, tentative at first, then swelling as validation met Amara's declaration. She felt her throat tighten, a mixture of exhaustion and triumph, knowing the battle had been fought not just against Ethan, but against every shadow that had attempted to suppress her. "I am not here to seek revenge," she continued, eyes flashing with intensity. "I am here to assert my right to be heard, to show that resilience outshines deceit and that integrity always has its witness." Ethan's mouth opened, then closed, speechless, the room's energy pressing against him from all sides. Michael exhaled audibly, pressing a reassuring hand against her back. "They're listening now, every one of them." Amara's gaze softened slightly, not in weakness, but in confidence, knowing the tide had turned irrevocably. Daniel stepped forward briefly, interjecting without diminishing Amara's momentum. "Let her words settle in," he said, voice firm, "and understand that leadership, courage, and honesty are not inherited, they are earned, and Amara has earned every ounce of respect this room can offer." The crowd responded, a mix of nods, murmurs, and applause, as Ethan's posture slumped, realization dawning that influence could be lost faster than it was accumulated. Amara felt a surge of empowerment as she continued speaking, outlining the efforts, sacrifices, and unyielding resolve that had brought her here. "I stand not as someone defined by the opinions of others, but as someone defined by unwavering belief in herself. And I hope every person witnessing this remembers. Your voice matters, your persistence matters, and your truth is never to be silenced." The hall erupted gradually into loud, sustained applause, a chorus of acknowledgement that washed over her like vindication incarnate. Tasha's laughter was soft but triumphant, and Michael's eyes glimmered with pride. Pride not just for victory, but for the fortitude displayed. Ethan retreated toward the periphery, defeated, while Daniel's calm presence remained at her side, a silent testament to the strength of solidarity. Amara's chest rose and fell, her body finally letting go of the tension that had coiled within for months, and she realized she had not just reclaimed her voice, she had amplified it, asserting her identity to everyone present. The chandeliers shimmered above, reflecting the brilliance of her triumph and the clarity of her self-determination, each glittering surface mirroring the power of resilience made visible. As she stepped away from the podium, the crowd parted respectfully, and Amara felt a profound, quiet confidence settle over her. The battle had ended not with chaos but with clarity, not with submission but with the affirmation of her worth and strength. Michael wrapped an arm around her shoulders, whispering, "You did it. You owned every second." Tasha nudged her gently, smiling, "And now they can never take it away." Amara exhaled slowly, feeling the intensity of months of pressure lift, replaced with the exhilaration of recognition and victory. Her journey, marked by struggle and resilience, had reached a definitive moment, and she knew that no force could undermine the truth she now boldly claimed. Thank you for following Amara's journey and witnessing her courage and resilience. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the story. What inspired you most, or which moment resonated with you? Feel free to share your reflections in the comments or with friends who might enjoy this tale. Your support means so much, and we can't wait to bring you more stories soon. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and see you in the next chapter.